and welcome to the football podcast that is less Bobby Decordova-Reid and more Bobby Zamora, less Michael Owen and more Michael Ricketts, less Nick Barmby and more Nicholas Bentner. It's the big man up top. I'm Ed.
And I'm Joe.
How are you doing, Joe?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm excited.
Good.
This is an idea we've had for a while.
We've had it for a while. Tell us about this podcast. Why are we even doing this, Joe?
Well, you and I, Ed.
Yes.
We like talking about football.
We do.
You're a Stoke fan, aren't you?
I am. And you're a Liverpool fan.
I'm a Liverpool fan.
The whole point about this podcast really is that Joe and I are Christians and we're also mad football fans. And we know that being Christians actually impacts all areas of our life. And so we wanted to ask the question, how does being a Christian impact our lives as football fans?
Absolutely. And there's some big topics and big issues in football that, as a Christian, it can be hard to know how to approach that, how to talk about that, what to do about that. How should I feel about this? What's going on in football? Maybe that's about finances. Maybe that's about criticism. Maybe it's about sports washing, big one.
Maybe it's about should you boo at a football match? We're going to be looking at some big questions, a lot of not so big questions, and just a lot of general silly nonsense, I think, as well.
We've basically taken it upon ourselves to solve all the issues in football, haven't we?
Yeah, we have, yeah. Do you think we're going to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key word for today because we're going to be talking about hope.
Hope.
How exciting is that? But first, we're going to start with a weekly roundup, as we'll do every week, to talk about the big football stories that have happened. Joe, do you have any sort of big takeaways? Now, obviously, you are a Premier League supporter.
I'm a Premier Leagueman, yeah. It's strange, isn't it? We often feel so entitled as Premier Leaguesmen.
Yeah. You're talking to me, a Stoke fan, who is not a Premier Leaguesman.
Not just yet. I support a very good team, Ed.
You do.
And there's been a lot of uproar that we've made no signings during the summer. But I'm quite happy.
Yeah.
I don't need anyone new.
You'll be happy with third place.
Yeah.
Not quite.
Not quite, no.
Not quite.
No.
Okay, so what's happened? Well, first of all, the Community Shield, the Charity Shield, did you watch it?
I watched the penalty shootout on mute.
Okay.
It was quite a difficult time. I was away with some friends,
right.
And not everyone is into football.
It was not that kind of vibe.
Not that kind of vibe, which I struggle with.
Yeah.
But I was like, can we have it on? Like, it's going to penalties. I said, there's no extra time. Can we put the penalties on? And we agreed that it could be on, but on mute.
Great.
So, yeah, I watched that bit. I had to do my own commentary in my head. The lads I was with can vouch for this. I called Johnny Evans kicking it over the bar.
Did you?
I said, this is going over.
Wow.
And to a room full of non-football fans, that was...
They thought that...
my word.
They thought you were... I was going to say Houdini, but that's not what he did, was it?
No, Uri Geller.
Uri Geller.
Bending my spoons.
Yeah, the Christian Uri Geller, great.
And a Community Shield is an interesting one, isn't it? Because if your team wins it, great. If your team doesn't win it, it's a glorified friendly.
Yeah, and that's it. What's the point in it? Is the question I would always ask.
I mean, it's a lovely trophy.
Yeah. My overwhelming memory of the Charity Shield was whatever year it was, maybe in the mid-90s. I want to say it was Man United versus Arsenal. And I remember Schmeichel and David Seaman taking penalties against each other. I want to say Seaman missed a penalty and United won. And it was, pointless.
And that's the problem these
Waste
days,
of a day.
Because Edison took a penalty, but he was like the fifth penalty taker.
Yeah, not having that.
No, it's not okay.
No.
He's too good at penalties.
Either take this game seriously or don't bother at all.
Yeah.
In other football news, it was the start of the Championship season.
It was. How did Stoke get on this weekend?
We won 1-0.
Oh, scraped through.
I
saw an article that it was quite a convincing win. But then I saw the scoreline and thought, can 1-0 be that convincing?
No, it wasn't convincing. It was it was 6 out of 10. We were better than the other team. We scored 1 goal.
What more could you ask for?
I was actually more interested by the fact that over the summer at Stoke City, they've put a lot of money into the concourse area, and there's now a fan zone at the stadium, and they've upgraded the food.
I was going to ask, what's it done to the food game at Stoke?
So instead of a burger, Joe, I had chicken katsu curry and chips.
Oh, that's not right. Is it? That's not right.
Something felt very wrong about the whole thing.
It's not very Stoke, is it?
It's not very Stoke, is it? But yeah, obviously football kicked off this last weekend in the Football League, and we're going to actually look at a story from the Championship a little later on.
So every week we want to have a bit of fun, don't we, Ed?
We always want to have a bit of fun.
We always want to have
show.
fun, but particularly in this section, this is structured fun.
Structured fun, good.
Do you like quizzes?
I love quizzes, Joe.
Now, we're going to do a quiz. We're going to do a question every week, and we're still trying to workshop the name. You came up with Bible Ballers.
It's not good.
I asked AI, because everyone asks AI these days.
Yeah.
And it came up with Testament Top Bins.
Yeah, that's... Is that better?
Well, I'll run you through the quiz and maybe it will make sense.
Okay,
so what we're
go
going
for
to
it.
do is one of us is going to ask the other a question every week, and it's going to be about a footballer. The only thing is that footballer shares the name with a book of the Bible.
Gotcha.
So your Matthews, your Marks, your Lukes, your Johns, all those, or your Thessalonians.
Yeah, of course. So, question for you. So, Philippians, can I have Phil Jagielka? Does that work?
I mean, it'd be bending it slightly.
I would say no. That doesn't feel right.
Would you say no?
I would say no. So we're going to quiz each other each week, and we want you to let us know how you do as well. So this week it's Joe's turn to quiz me. So
yeah.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Are you?
I'm not very good at this sort of thing. So let's crack on and see how it goes.
Well, I'm going to give you the whole episode to think of your answer, and then we'll revisit at the end.
It's probably for the best. Yeah, good.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Which Scottish midfielder has played in League 2, League 1, the Championship, the Premier League, has played under Eddie Howe at 2 clubs, and has recently rejoined his boyhood club? What are your thoughts initially?
I honestly have absolutely no idea. So the big one for me is played for Eddie Howe. So I'm thinking straight away, thinking Bournemouth.
Okay.
Possibly Newcastle as well.
He's obviously a future England manager.
Obviously, yeah. So we're thinking Bournemouth and or Newcastle midfielder, Scottish. It makes sense that he was someone who rose through the leagues with Bournemouth when Eddie Howe was in charge. I honestly can't think.
I have a little clue for you. Do you want that now?
I really would like a clue here because I'm struggling to grasp any names.
I don't know how much this is going to help.
Okay.
He's just passed his lorry driving test.
That doesn't help me out.
Does that not help? Okay. Well, think about what I said about he's a midfielder sometimes employed in defence.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
I'll give you the rest of the episode to think about it.
Okay, yeah. Thanks if you can do. Yeah, that'd be great. So I don't know if you saw this, Joe, but obviously the Football League kicked off last weekend, and there was lots of stories, all across all the divisions. But the one that really jumped out at me was the one about Preston sacking Ryan Lowe after one game.
After one game.
Obviously, it was a defeat.
Sure.
He's been in charge for a few years now, but this feels like a new low for sort of the managerial merry-go-round. I don't know what you think. I've got a small part of the statement that the chairman wrote, okay. And it said here, Ryan joined the club in December 21, leading us to 13th, 12th and 10th placed finishes in his 2.5 seasons as the club's first team manager. So he's doing well. He's trending.
Quite well, yeah.
Following discussions that took place on Sunday, the 11th of August, it was mutually agreed that now was an appropriate time for a change to be made. I put it to you, Joe, that after the first game of the season is the most inappropriate time to change your manager.
I was about to say, probably the least appropriate time.
I mean,
what a wild decision.
But I mean, Ryan Lowe himself said something to the effect of, we both chatted it through and we realised now's the time for me to move on. So that sounds like he was sort of quite happy to go. But why did he not do this in May? That's the question.
That would have helped everyone out.
It would have done. You'd have had a proper pre-season. You'd have had all that sort of stuff. So no idea what's going on here, Joe.
I'd love to know what those discussions were on Sunday.
That is,
something must have happened.
Yeah, it does feel a little bit like something more than just first defeat, get him out. I'm actually really keen to know if anybody's got any more information on this. So if you're a Preston fan, get in touch. podcasts@ucb.co.uk. But can we all agree, give your managers some time?
More than one game, please.
That's not enough time. Can't sack him after one game.
So like before we said, we don't want to just talk about football. As much as we'd love to just chat football nonsense the whole time, we should touch on some big topics and issues in the game, Ed, and discuss that from a Christian perspective.
Yeah, definitely.
So this week we're going to talk about the topic of hope. Now, this is something we all have when it comes to football. The new season comes around. We all think our team is this is it. This is our year.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right that at this point of the season, everyone is much more hopeful, broadly speaking. There's not many fans that are thinking, right, this is a nightmare. We're going down, at least wait till September before you think
September, or after the first game in Preston's case. Now, you've had a conversation with someone about this, haven't you?
I have, yes.
Would you like to tell us more?
Yeah, so I spoke to Luke Sharp, who is heading up the Audacious Foundation in Manchester. It's linked with Audacious Church. They're doing some amazing work in their community. But also, Luke Sharp is a big football fan. And here's the big thing, Joe. He supports multiple teams.
Ooh.
Yeah, what do you think of that?
I don't like the sound of it.
I don't like the sound of it. Good.
I hope he explains himself.
He does. Good. But he's somebody that when I think of Luke, I think of somebody who is just a huge football fan. He follows the fortunes of a few teams, and he's Man United through and through. That's his big team. But also as well, he's an incredibly hope-filled person. And so I wanted to ask him a little bit about how he stays hopeful as a football fan, but also how he stays hopeful just in life in general.
As a football fan and a Christian man.
Exactly, and that rhymes, which means it's good. Luke Sharp, hello, how are you?
Hey Ed, how are you doing? I'm great, thank you.
Oh, yeah, really good, thanks mate, really good. So Luke joins us from the Audacious Foundation, and we'll get on to sort of the actual chat about football, but I think first, it'd just be amazing if you could tell us a little bit about Audacious Foundation and about what you do within that.
So I've been in the role leading the Audacious Foundation for the last month or so. I'm part of the church here in Manchester, and really what we seek to do is help those in need in the community. So at the moment, we're running things like Stop Holiday Hunger programs. So we're running school clubs for kids 4 days a week for 4 weeks of the summer holidays, where children can come in, they can have physical activity, healthy food, and a great meal, and just a great time with the team. It's a real good enrichment opportunity, but also just to be able to meet the needs for families who their children would normally be entitled to free school meals in term time. We run projects for cancer support, Audacious Cares. We run A-Teams, which is serving the vulnerable and the homeless in the city of Manchester, Salford, and other places as well.
That all sounds amazing. I think particularly what really excites me about projects like that is that it feels like it's the church doing stuff that the church should be doing. We love gathering on a Sunday, and we love the small groups, and however else we need to be getting fed, but this is the church feeding others, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing, and like I said, it's a privilege to be a part of it. And it's not about us doing something to get recognition or a pat on the back for it, but it's just about just going and meeting need and seeing people supported. If that ends up being a bridge into people being able to connect with the church and the community here in the church on a Sunday or whatever, then that's fantastic. But the main aim is that lives are changed and communities are transformed through the work and the support that we can offer through the foundation.
Alongside all of the amazing work that you guys are doing through Audacious Foundation, you're also a bit of a football fan, aren't you, Luke?
I am indeed. A bit would be an understatement.
A bit would be an understatement. Okay, so I was going to sort of introduce you as a fan of one particular club, but I feel like you've got connections to lots of clubs. So run us through where your heart is in terms of your allegiances, shall we say?
Yeah, I mean, you're setting me up to fail there a bit, Ed, because I know people will be like, "Well, you can't support more than one team, Luke. That's not allowed."
Well, sell it to us. Come on, sell it to us.
All right, I'm right. I live in Manchester now. I didn't grow up in Manchester. I was born in Gloucester, and I lived there till I was 9 years old. And if you know anything about Gloucester, it's a rugby town. It's not football. So I had to pick a football team. My dad is a Manchester United fan, and so that was my first love, Manchester United. We used to travel up a few times a season to Old Trafford from a very young age. I think my first game was when I was about 6 or 7. Ipswich Town at Old Trafford 2 days before Christmas. And I think John O'Shea made his debut up front, Ed.
That is incredible. How did he do?
I don't know. You'd have to ask Andy Cole, I think. So I've been a Manchester United fan all my life, and then had the opportunity to move to Manchester when I was a bit older, and so obviously that works now. But between Gloucester and Manchester, I lived in Torquay for a good period of time as a teenager. And so I ended up getting season tickets at Plainmoor, the home of the greatest team in the Southwest, Torquay United Football Club. And so I was a season ticket holder there. And so that became really my next love in football. And still to this day, I try and get and watch them whenever I can, follow everything. And it's exciting times at the minute. And now I actually live a stone's throw away from the Peninsula Stadium, which is the home of Salford City Football Club. So myself and my 7-year-old daughter, we've been down there a couple of times to watch the games as well, which is cool, just to have a smaller local team that's not Manchester United as well.
How I'd sort of describe you then is sort of just a football fan. You are clearly, Manchester United is your team, but obviously, you just have a general love of the game, love of local sides. So, you sort of, more than keeping an eye on the local team, you're actually getting behind them, getting to games, etc.
It's interesting as well because the experience at a smaller, lower league game compared to a Premier League game, it's a totally different experience. So actually, in some ways, it sometimes feels like a different sport, if you know what I mean. Like, it obviously it's football, but it's like this experience is so different. The style of football, the atmosphere, all that sort of thing. So I love it. I absolutely love it.
Manchester United, Torquay, and Salford. How hopeful are you for the upcoming seasons for those three teams in a nutshell?
Okay, no, Manchester United. I'm hopeful. My heart says one thing, my head says another. If I'm honest, let's see how we're doing by Christmas. But I'm hopeful. A couple of signings are due to come in this week, so I think if we're there or thereabouts with the top 4 come Christmas, we could be in for a decent season. Another trophy would be nice. But yeah, we'll see. The FA Cup saved last season, I've got to be honest. It was, and I think it saved the manager as well, didn't it?
It did a little bit, didn't it?
I think, we'll see with that one. Torquay United, I'm really optimistic about Torquay United. They nearly went out of business towards the end of last season. The owner basically said, "I don't want to fund this anymore," and walked. They went into administration, and they've been bought by a consortium of fans who have put finance into it. They had one player signed from last season, so they've had to sign 22 new squad members for the season. So it's going to take time for them to gel, but they won their first game of the National League season 2-1 at the weekend. There's a real positive energy around the club, and I think that makes a massive difference, doesn't it? When the fans are excited, when the fans create an atmosphere for the team to perform. I think we're one of the, don't quote me on this, but I think we're one of the only full-time teams in the National League South. So I'm expectant that we should win this league, worst case, playoffs. But it's got to be a promotion season. And then Salford, I have no idea. I have no idea how that one's going to go.
The thing that also gets me, Luke, is that I feel like the thing with hope, when it comes to football, I mean, is that it disappears so quickly. But also, at the same time, it can rise so quickly as well. How do you cope when things all of a sudden start to sort of maybe not quite turn out as you'd have liked as a football fan? How do you deal with that?
It's tough, isn't it? It is a roller coaster being a football fan, especially with Man United. I'm thinking in particular, but you're always balancing hope and expectation, aren't you? And it's like, what are the expectations? So if you're supporting a team that's just been promoted to the Premier League, your expectation is fairly low. If you escape the bottom three, you've had a good season, and if you get beat, it's not too demoralising. Whereas when you're a Man United fan and you get beat 4-0 away at Crystal Palace or something like that, it is just the end of the world. One thing that's like helpful as a football fan, particularly in the season and the amount of games that are being played, is that there's always another opportunity to set the record straight coming up fairly quick. There's always another chance. It doesn't matter how bad it is, does it? You're always looking forward to the kickoff of the next game where hope is high again. And that's a really helpful thing, is that the games come around thick and fast. I'm not sure my wife agrees, but I love it.
I think you're right. I think expectation is a massive one. I think particularly a club like Man United, who in such recent memory were so successful. But I think you said something really interesting there, was about perspective. And you often hear managers after big defeats or even after big wins say things like, well, this is just one game and we go to next week, and that sort of thing. So I think there's definitely something in it about keeping perspective week to week and then month to month, and not, getting too carried away, or big defeat or big win.
Yeah, and I think it's the same as in life, isn't it? Where you can only take one step at a time, and like I'm sure you, like me, you've got long-term goals, that are things you want to do, things you want to achieve. We don't necessarily always get the full picture when we hear the TV interviews or the radio commentaries or anything like that of what actually are their realistic goals, what in-house are they aiming for. And so what we hear is, we're just taking one step at a time. Well, it's a journey, isn't it? And that's kind of the up and downs of a football season. That's what we get, isn't it, from football managers, is we'll just keep going, and hopefully we end up where we want to end up at the end of the season.
Hopefully being the key word there. You mentioned that, you said something like, it's just like in life, isn't it? And I think that's that's really crucial, is that we all go through ups and downs in life. But one of the sort of main themes of the Christian faith is hope. As a Christian, how do you stay hopeful? Because like supporting a football team, week to week, things happen, great things happen, bad things happen, some much worse than others, or some really, really highs and some huge lows. How do you stay hopeful?
I think to keep with like the kind of the football terminology, I think is about recognizing seasons in life, and that everything in life is seasonal. Maybe we have a job for a certain period of time, or maybe even some relationships we have are seasonal. We might move to a different part of the world, a different location, or whatever. Things in our lives are constantly changing, constantly evolving. And I think it's recognizing seasons. One of the verses in the Bible that I love, that's really kind of helped me as over my life over the last few years, there's been loads of change, loads of stuff going on, is Isaiah chapter 40. And it says, the grass withers and the flowers fade, but the word of the Lord remains forever. So it's kind of going, I've got to recognize that there are seasons in my life and things are going to change. And I believe that God changes the seasons in our lives. But there's one thing that remains the same, and that's God and his word. And that's where I then choose to put my hope. I choose to put my hope in something that never changes, as opposed to the seasons which come and go, the grass and the flowers that wither and fade. And I think it's similar to football, isn't it? Seasons come and go. Someone will have a shocking season one season, just avoid relegation. Even like Leicester in 2016. The year before, they just escaped the drop, didn't they? And then the following year, they've won the Premier League. And so I think that illustrates it perfectly, is that seasons come and seasons go. But for me as a Christian, and my personal faith is I believe that God never changes. And so that's where I'm going to put my hope, and that's where I'm going to depend. I'm going to depend on God, not on the season I'm in, because that's likely to change.
I completely agree. Sometimes you can feel like you're in the rebuilding season of your life, whether that's literally, house renovations or children or whatever. And sometimes it's like, okay, let's see if we can stay afloat. Let's see if we can, get the basics right. Yeah. And then other seasons are seasons of flourishing, aren't they? Listen, Luke, I've taken up way too much of your time. Thank you so much for coming and chatting with me. It's been really great to chat to you, and we'll get you on again soon.
Thanks, Ed. Bless you, mate.
So that was Luke Sharp chatting with Ed about the topic of hope. And I love what he said there about recognising seasons. There's a nice little double entendre there of football seasons.
I thought it was great.
That was really good. I don't know if that was intentional from him, but I really love that you could have an absolute stinker of a season last year, but then August, September comes around. You forget about that, don't you?
Yeah.
And you're hopeful of what is to come for the next season.
Absolutely. And I go back to, so you won't remember Liverpool being relegated, Joe.
I won't, no.
I also don't. But I remember Stoke getting relegated quite, and I think a lot of fans who, for whom their team has been relegated, it isn't sort of the despair that you often think it would be, because there's that whole thing of, well, actually, my club's been relegated, but something was clearly going wrong. So maybe this is the time to take stock, rebuild, look at other things and turn the situation around. So there's oddly, even in that, something quite hopeful, I think, anyway.
I think there's a lot we can draw from that in our day-to-day lives as well. And I've been looking at this phrase. Have you heard the phrase, it's the hope that kills you? Mm-hmm. And this is a phrase that is kind of thrown around. Let's say, for example, take the Euros final we've just had.
Yeah.
Cole Palmer equalises. Great goal. We're ecstatic. We're like, we're going to go on and win this.
We're going to win this.
Yeah. Spain then score. And the phrase that's going around is, it's the hope that kills you. Almost like it would have been better for our emotions if Cole Palmer didn't score. If Spain had just gone to a 2-0 win.
Yeah, or if we'd have just lost 1-0.
Just want to, almost like we don't want to set ourselves up for that hope and that optimism, because ultimately, and I looked at the origins of this phrase, and this line came out that said, having no expectations or hopes may be better, as your dreams may not be destroyed in a cruel manner. That's quite a sad indictment on society.
Yeah. When you're at that point where you think, I would rather nothing good happen, because at least then nothing can be taken away.
Exactly. Let's not strive for hope and optimism because it might go wrong.
Yeah. For me, it's all about having courage. So when I was listening to what Luke was saying in the interview, it's about having the courage to look beyond your circumstances, to look beyond the moment that you're in and look long term. One verse that really jumped out at me is John 16:33, where Jesus says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And I think that's amazing, because what Jesus is saying there is the situation around us is not always going to be good. In fact, in many situations, it's going to be quite bad. But take heart, another way of saying that is be courageous, take courage. I have overcome the world. Look at me instead of the situation that's around you. And I think there's just something about having that more longer term, dare I say, eternal perspective on our circumstances can really help us keep anchored in the hope that is in Jesus.
And you're right, we all go through bad seasons, bad things happen, and when you're in the midst of that, it can be hard to see a way out. It can be hard to say, if it's you're going through grief or something like that, it's hard to see how your life can get back to almost how it was in some way. But having this hope of eternal life, of the hope in Jesus Christ, we know that it is going to get better, both on this earth and in eternity. Yeah,
it is going to get better. Unless, of course, you're an Everton fan, in which case it doesn't look good, does it?
No, true. Yeah, so that's where I think we can draw some really nice parallels from season to season in football, season to season in life. Now, Ed, earlier on, I set you our Bible Ballers question.
Oh, I forgot about this.
Do you want me to read it again?
Yeah, please, because I can't tell you how far away I am. Like, for some reason, I keep just thinking Jack Cork, and like, there isn't a book of Jack.
Wasn't he Irish?
Yeah.
I know. That's not the main problem. I keep forgetting about the Bible book thing. I don't want to lie to you. It's episode 1. I'll get there.
You'll get there.
The book of Jack.
Read the question out again, please, Joe.
Which Scottish midfielder has played in League 2, League 1, the Championship, the Premier League, has played under Eddie Howe at 2 clubs and has recently rejoined his boyhood club. And I'll tell you that boyhood club is Portsmouth. And he's also just passed his lorry driving test.
Yeah, that's not going to help.
That's not going to help. You could imagine which journeyman is most likely to drive a lorry in retirement.
To be honest, the big thing is that I'm struggling to think of Scottish midfielders.
Okay, he's been capped by Scotland. He scored a goal for Scotland.
Yeah. Feeling like it's a James. Like a James McFadden or a James
McFadden.
Or a James McCarthy.
One of the Jameses.
It's a James Mac.
It's a good guess.
Yeah.
James Mac. I'm afraid it's not the right answer.
Okay.
Ed.
I'm interested to know how close in my mind I was to this.
Well, only you will know that. The correct answer is Matt Ritchie.
Oh, I was so far away from Matt Ritchie.
He's played for Newcastle. He's played for Bournemouth.
Oh, dear.
He scored for Scotland.
And what was this about his lorry license?
Oh, he's just passed his lorry driving.
Why?
I think he's setting himself up for post-retirement. Not everyone can be a pundit.
He can't be a pundit. He can't be an agent. So
Can't be a coach.
Can't be a coach.
He's going to be a lorry driver.
Oh, it sounds like a great life, to be fair.
Wouldn't mind it.
You know, lots of podcasts and all that sort of stuff. Well, no points for me this week.
No points.
Well, never mind. We need to do a running tally, don't we? But we can start that next week when one of us actually gets it right.
There isn't a tally yet. No.
Very good. Should we do it again next week?
Let's do it.
Let's do it next week. Well, thank you for listening to The Big Man Up Top. If you want to get in touch with the show, please ping us an email. We're at podcasts@ucb.co.uk. Please, please, please follow, subscribe, give us reviews, etc. This will help us to get the word out in the early days. And also, please, if you've enjoyed this, please tell your mates. See you next week.
Bye. See ya.